Hello and welcome everybody. Are you able to view the screen? Am I audible? You all can reply via the chat messenger. So welcome everybody once back. We are here to discuss and share the changes we are going to release in our upcoming version, that is with respect to good receive challan getting migrated from desktop application to web application. As we all know that ad hoc module, that good receive challan ad hoc module is already migrated to web application and it's available and updated to most of us. Now with this release, good receive challan against order will also be updated in web application. So from now onwards, receiving of goods on procurement of any items will not be available from desktop application. Both order and ad hoc item receiving will be done from web application itself. Along with migration of the module, we have came up with lots of changes and enhancements which were long pending from your side. Many feature requests and many other requirements and shortcomings in desktop application has been overcome in this migration to web. So let's see how we are and what are the changes we have done with our this release. Just to take a note, the release is not yet uploaded for public updation. We will be doing so in this week. So getting started with the changes sequentially. As we all know that in desktop application, the module assignments were done with respect to the roles assigned to the user. Any module, if required to be assigned to any specific user, needs the privilege being assigned to that user role. Whereas in web application, the privilege is migrated to operation basis. Means there are different operations which can be assigned to a user, like add, edit, delete, etc., through which user can create, edit, or delete any transaction. Coming up with this migration, the privilege of good receive challan against order from desktop application will be removed, and any user having the privilege of GRC against order will automatically be upgraded through this patch update, that they will be now enabled to continue receiving of items against order through web application itself. Now in web application, as we have already now in web application, as we have already released ad hoc module in the name of receipts, what we are doing with this new release is that we are making it single form through which both ad hoc items and order items can be received. For this changes, as there is a single menu, this assignment or allowance of receiving items through order or ad hoc is now profile driven. We can see that two new options has been added in user profile, that is allow ad hoc item selection in receipts and allow selection of items from order mode in receipts. These two options are assigned are added in user profile and will be migrated as per existing privileges to the user. Now, migration over here, I mean, is that whether the existing user is having the privilege of ad hoc receipts in web, or same user is having the privilege of receiving item against order from desktop application. In both the scenarios, if the user is having the permission of both ad hoc and against order, so this profile, the profile which is being used by the user, will automatically be marked as ticked, so that they can continue using both the modes of receipt after this version update. What I am trying to incorporate over here is, if any of you wants to allow a user only single mode of selection, that is either ad hoc selection or order item selection, so they can control it through this profile settings. Let's see where in profile we have added this option. In procurement tab, we can see the profiles for allow selection of order of items from order mode in receipts. A new option has been added. There was already an option for alternate item selection, so this has been kept intact, that allows selection of items from alternate mode in receipts. New profile for ad hoc item selection is now added, that is allow ad hoc item selection. Another option for set item selection in receipt is also added, means user can select item via set scanning from any order. So as of now, we can see that these profiles are newly added over here, and user can allow or disallow options to their respective operators as per their profiles. So moving on from this slide, now entering the transaction entry. The first change you will see over here is a new field for owner side being added. So while creating a good receipt challan, the new field, the first field, you can see that owner side. This is the new addition to a transaction entry for good receipt. Now what is this owner side? The owner side refers to the connected site, or you can say to at which place the good receipt is being done, or at which location or at which warehouse the good receipt is being done. So owner sites over here is reflected as by default connected site, means in desktop application we can relate it with, at the time of login we used to select a site where the user connects and transactions are made to that site itself. The flexibility we are trying to provide this in web is if user is operating for multiple sites at a time, he won't have to log out for creating an entry for different sites. He can simply change the owner site over here and proceed with the entry. Selection of owner site will automatically filter out the dependent fields like receipt number, vendor name, etc., which has been assigned to that owner site and respectively. So you can see that ease of work is been provided over here. That change of connected site, you won't have to log out the module, you won't have to log out the screen, the entry process, and you can continue having multiple entries for different sites simultaneously. So it's another big advantage that we are providing over here to the end users. So moving on with this, items from multiple order can be received in a single receipt. Now this was long pending. This requirement was being raised from years back that in a single receipt users want to tag multiple orders. Now, how the requirement is generated or what's the purpose of this requirement? Generally, what happens is multiple orders are being placed, maybe of same item or different items to a single vendor, who, according to his ease of work, dispatches the goods to the buyer. Now, in most of the cases, the seller doesn't dispatches the goods order wise. They used to club multiple items of multiple orders and delivers it to the buyer. As of now, there was a restriction in Ginesys application that if we are making a receipt challan against order, we were not being able to select multiple orders in a single receipt. We have to generate different receipts for different orders, hence creating lot of hiccups in the scenario specified that where the seller is providing a single challan and we have to distribute it among different receipts. Now, with this release, we have overcome this challenge and providing the option of selecting multiple orders in a single transaction entry. This is how we can do this. In desktop application, if we remember that selection of order number was needed after selection of vendor name itself in the header information field, that only one order can be selected, and at the point of item selection only items with respect to those orders were displayed, so multiple orders cannot be selected. But now in web application, what we have done is we have provided different options for selection of item in item detail block itself. What are the options we have provided? We have provided different function buttons for select order items and alternate order items. Let's see in the UI screen where and how it's been added. So document number scheme can be selected, vendor name. Now let's select a vendor. For the ease of this demonstration, I have already created some orders which are still pending so that we can move on without hiccups of creating orders. So as we can see in the item detail block, There were earlier options for ad hoc item selections only, like select item, create item, scan item, import barcode, import Excel, copy challan. These were the only options provided for selection of items. With this release, what we have came up with is two new options of select order items and alternate order items. We have added these two options over here for item selection purpose. As I've already said that item selection is dependent upon profile settings. As I've shown you in previous slides that two new profiles has been added for selection of items. That is to allow selection of ad hoc items and to allow selection of items via order mode. So depending upon that profile option, this function button will be workable. So moving on with select order item mode, how does it work? The functional behavior of this, it may seem to be completely different from the one that we were having in desktop application. So this is much more flexible and much more user oriented. As we can see that the first option over here is select how the items will be populated. We can see that the two radio option has been provided over here. One is select an order and populate all pending items. This refers to if a user knows the order number and he wants to select respective items of that order only. So he can proceed with this option, and on selection of this we can see that in a different block field for purchase order is enabled. Over here, the list of all the pending orders are displayed along with order number, date, authorized by, status. Means all the relevant information with respect to orders are also being displayed over here. User can select the required order and can have two different options over here and is having two different options for selection of items. One is user can either scan the barcodes of the items which he has received. Scanning the item barcode will populate the items in the grid over here, or user can use or select the option for show items. This will populate all the items pending for this selected purchase order, displaying barcode, item description, order number, order date, pending quantity with received quantity field as blank. User can either manually input the field quantity over here or can use the function button provided at the bottom of the window stating receive all pending quantity. Click on this and the total pending quantity will get reflected in received quantity. So if I know that I have received a complete order which has been selected, I can easily use this receive all pending quantity and populate the item selected over here. Differently, if I don't know the item barcodes, I don't know want to use the total selection of items. It may be that I have thousands of items of which the order was made and I have received only few of those for which user has provided me the item description in the challan and I don't have the barcodes to scan. In that case, we can use the search criteria option over here. This search criteria will help you in searching only the pending items for the selected order. Means the field values for department, category or item parameters which has been displayed in search criteria will display only those values which are pending for this respective order only. For example, if I check category 1 over here, it's displaying only single category value, that is 1016. It signifies that all the items in this order which are pending has the same category, that is 1016. Means no other items having a different category is pending to be received for this order. Once again, I would like to repeat that the list for values displaying over here will reflect only for the pending items only. Over here we can see that category 2 is reflecting the colors, and over and the list is displaying three colors. That means design number 1016 of three different colors are pending to be received from that order. Either we can specify any of the categories known, or we can even search without specifying any category. Well, it may take some time to populate and search depending upon the volume of data. So we can see over here that the total pending items, all the items that is having the same category values for category 1, that is 1016, and distinct three different colors, that is blue, green and yellow, for all the items pending for this order. So moving on to a different mode, that is select an item and populate all pending orders. Now why this is being used, or why this is being required? So it may happen that I have been having multiple orders pending for the same vendor, and it may happen that multiple orders for same items is also pending for the same vendor. In that case, order selection is not feasible because I don't know against which order the goods are delivered. Over here, user can either scan the barcode or can search the items with the criteria available. So we can see that on search, the item with order details of the pending order is been populated. Now, if I don't provide any category and search over here, system will populate all the pending orders for all the items for that vendor. Let me provide you multiple options over here. So this will make more clarity. That will bring more clarity over here. Like if I have multiple orders and I search over here, so now we can see that as two orders are pending, so all the items for all the orders are being reflected over here. User can select the receipt quantity order wise. User can filter the order over here and can select, or I want to sort item barcode wise, and can receive the quantities as per respective pending. So what I've done over here is I have searched the entire pending list of the items. I have sorted the barcode over here and received the pending quantity displays for two different orders over here. So what I am doing is I am searching the item barcode for multiple orders and populating it in a single entry. So So after population, we can see over here that the same barcode having different order details is being populated in the same entry over here. So it's much more flexible, much more usable. User can select multiple options over here, have different search fields, can use search criteria, can use scan barcode, and many more ways. Additionally, we are providing multiple columns over here which will reflect more information as per requirement. You can select those like valid up to, tolerance with respect to orders, MRP information, any information which you required with respect to item can be taken up for display. So moving ahead with this, coming out with alternate mode items. Again, this is also dependent upon the profile settings for the user. I'm not going in much detail of this alternate mode because it's almost identical to what we have available in desktop application. It's the same behavior. User can select all the pending orders from the list. The barcodes for the pending order will be displayed for selection, and by default the received quantity, the pending quantity will get populated as received quantity. User can select items through multiple options over here, that is create item, select, scan, import or Excel file, and can populate for receiving. So I'm not going in detail with alternate modes. You can cross check with the existing behavior. So moving ahead with this now. So we have already seen that multiple orders can now be selected in a single receipt. This was a big advantage. Now adding icing on the cake, what we are allowing you is selection of both ad hoc items as well as order item in the same entry. Now why is this required and how this can be used? Many a time it happens that along with the order items, the vendor do provide some ad hoc items like samples, some new productions, some free items, etc., along with same package in the same package. So if we are restricted of receiving the item against order only, what we have to do now is making two separate entries. One was for ad hoc items and the other was for order items. It was more tedious or more cumbersome if those receipts was made against a logistic. So the logistic quantity has to be broken down and tagged in fractional units in both the receipts for ad hoc and order items. So with this release, we are also overcoming this problem, that is receiving of both ad hoc items as well as order items in the same entry. Depending upon the profile setting of the user, that if the user is allowed to receive both ad hoc items and order items, these multiple options will be available for selection of items. Like if we scan over here, we can see that order items was already selected from order number 91 and 92 from the vendor. Along with this, I have scanned two ad hoc items. It may be same item, it may be a different item. Suppose if I select Q1 over here again, so we are having three different records for same item barcode. Two of them are satisfying the order pending from that vendor, and one was for the ad hoc item received. Now we can also increase the order quantity by changing the quantity over here. And if we don't want to do that, if we want to keep the orders intact, we can now receive this as an ad hoc item, which we were not able to do in our desktop application. So we are having advantage over here in web that same item can be received as ad hoc and order, so that we can differentiate later on that how many quantities are being received against order and how many are received on ad hoc basis. One thing we have to note with respect to this multi mode of selection is the population of rate. The item rate for which is specified in the respective orders will be populated as per the order records, and for ad hoc item it will depend upon the vendor master settings, that is the price type selected for the respective vendor will get called off to populate the items. Even if price chart is defined for the vendor, then the item price in the price chart will get populated for ad hoc items, whereas the item specified in purchase order will be populated for the order item records. So I hope you will be quite eager to use this multi modes of receiving, that is mixed mode of receiving, for items, that is items against multiple order, items having ad hoc and both against order in the same entry, making your task reduced manifold. For example, if a single logistics receipt has been received from a vendor having delivered for items with multiple orders, and along with some samples even, at present suppose 5 orders being delivered with an ad hoc entry with ad hoc items, that means 6 receipt entry were required to be generated, 5 for each order and 1 for ad hoc. So now you can save your time of 5 different entries, that is all items can be received in a single transaction entry. So it's a big time saving impact we are providing over here that will reduce your workload and will sharpen your operations. So moving ahead with this, few smaller requirements were also there, like we were already having vendor document number or reference number in the header information, where user used to input or provides input for vendor challan number, but we were not having the field for vendor document date. Now it happens that vendor, the day the vendor has packed the items was a week before, and we used to provide the challan number, but we were not able to provide the challan date or the vendor document date over here. But hence, for this we have added the field for vendor document date also. So if required, this is an optional field. If required, we can use this along with vendor document number and vendor document date. Moving ahead with currency selection. In web application, as of now, currency was behaving as a display field which was always populated as base currency by default, and modification in that is not allowed. The logic behind this is कि receipt as being made by the software at the location where the item has been received. Hence, the currency will always be of that same location. So that will be the base currency. Hence, modification was not allowed, so that currency impact doesn't changes the item rate. This was applicable for ad hoc items, whereas when we are raising a purchase order to a vendor located at a foreign destination, we have to raise the purchase order in the currency which is prevailing for that vendor country. It may happen that if I am placing an order to a North South Asian country, Southeastern Asian countries, then we have to place the order in dirhams. Whereas if you purchase it from US side, then the exchange currency selected will be dollars over there. Along with currency selection, the exchange rate is also required. That at the time of purchase order, what was the exchange rate? So when we are receiving orders against those vendors and those for those currencies, we have to filter it out that which orders or the orders of which currency which we are going to receive. This currency can be defined in vendor master itself, so that on selection of those vendor, the currency with respect to the vendor that gets directly populated over here, as well as currency name, the exchange rate applicable at the time of receiving gets populated in receipt also. All this behavior was already available in desktop application in good receipt challan against order. Why I am repeating this over here is that now we are having a single form. Once again, I am saying that we are having a single form for both ad hoc item and against order item. So the field for currency is now being renamed as order currency over here. Now this relates to that the currency which we are providing or selecting over here will have effect on order items only. If any item is being selected on ad hoc basis, so the rate will directly get populated as per base currency. For order items, rate of item will get multiplied with the exchange rate provided to get the base rate for that item, that is the in base currency. So let me show you with an example. So as we can see that on selection of vendor tree, the order currency is populated as US dollar. That means I have already specified the currency in vendor tree, the master of vendor tree as US dollar. So it's get automatically populated over here, and exchange rate we can see is being populated at 69.71 This is with respect to the transaction date, that is 21st of May 2019, as we have defined in the currency master for US dollar. We can modify the currency exchange rate if required, and on selection of order items, only those orders will be displayed which are being raised in the currency selected. On population of item, the order rate gets multiplied with the exchange rate to derive the net rate at the time of receiving for this transaction. We can again change this exchange rate over here, and to keep a note of this, modification of exchange rate will automatically calculate the item rate for order items. Modification, the message will be displayed for confirmation that modification of the exchange rate which will calculate rate of item selected against an order only. Please confirm to proceed. So we can see that the item rate is being reduced to 12,000 depending on the change of exchange rate. Exchange rate can be modified both before selection of item and after selection of item. Selection of order does not depend upon exchange rate. It may happen that order was booked with the currency exchange rate having 60 rupees, and at the time of receiving of items, currency exchange rate has been raised, either raised to 70 or may be raised to 40 or drop down to 40. So excuse me, there is some issues with internet connection, I guess. Please bear with us for a minute. দেখা যাচ্ছে না। কি হচ্ছে দেখতে পাচ্ছি না তো। লোডিং স্টেট আছে না, দেখতে পাচ্ছি না। So sorry for the interruption. There were some issues, technical issues. So coming back to the entry, what I was saying about is foreign exchange or the exchange rate. So this is applicable only for the orders which have been raised in a different currency. That is for the vendors who are located in a different country. So another important aspect with respect to this is, as we are now able to select both ad hoc items, as we are able to select both ad hoc items and order items in the same transaction, item rate for ad hoc items will not have any impact of exchange rate. As we can see that item for rate for ad hoc items is being populated from its master directly, whereas when we select order item, it gets multiplied. It gets multiplied with the exchange rate provided over here. Now we can see that the order was raised in 1200 unit, whereas if the exchange rate is kept as 10, it gets multiplied with 10. So it the impact is basically of foreign exchange rate in which the order has been raised. So moving ahead with this, thereafter comes the logistic information. In desktop application, logistic tagging, if applicable for the selected vendor, was required after selection of items, after calculation of charges, that is at the end point. But migrating this to web, what we have done is that if logistic is applicable for the vendor, selection of logistic is mandatory before item selection. It is item selection before selecting an item. If logistic is applied for the vendor, has to be tagged in the logistic information block. Hence, we have provided the logistic information before item details. If logistic is applicable without selecting the logistic information, that is either get entry or logistics, one will not be able to select items, either order items or ad hoc items. So logistic selection becomes mandatory before selection of items if applicable for the respective vendor. Another important change with respect to logistic is for the user who are using shipment applicable process. Now, for shipment applicable vendors, now vendors for whom shipment applicable is marked as tick in the respective master. As of now, in desktop application, only orders which are been dispatched for that respective logistics can be received in the single challan. Now, the flexibility that we are providing over here in web is, along with that tagged logistic for shipment, if any ad hoc item if is received, then that can also be received in same transaction. If items for any other order is also sent along with that logistics, can also be received in the same entry. That means, to sum up with this, that if the logistic selected is having shipment applicable, then ad hoc items, item for a different order, as well as the order against which the shipment is made, can be received in the same transaction. The only check with respect to this is at least one item against that shipment logistics order has to be available in that receipt entry. Otherwise, system won't be allow you to save the respective transaction. So making the entry more flexible, we are providing multiple options through which the logistic tagging or keeping this logistic tagging entry intact, that is for a single logistics, a single receipt can be made. We are allowing these changes. As of now, multiple receipts were required for a single logistic goods. So overcoming these challenges, we are providing this flexibility. So moving ahead with respect to item rate modification. As we all know that in desktop application, good receipt challan against order and good receipt challan for ad hoc, even after migration to web, were having two different modules. And due to that, we were having two different profile options for modification of rates in respective entry modules. But after updating good receipt challan to web, as we are having it in a single entry form, multiple options for rate modifications cannot be provided. So what we have came up with a single option for rate modification in receipts. User can either set it to not allowed, that is, rate modification is not allowed both for order items as well as ad hoc items, or we can set it for all allowed, that is, modification of rate is allowed to both ad hoc item and order items without any checking. User can either increase the rate or decrease the rate as as per his requirement. Another option what we are providing over here is ad hoc allowed, but purchase order modification of rate can be done only up to the order rate. That means for ad hoc items, user increase or decrease the rate as per its requirement, but for order items, operator can only reduce the rate from the order rate specified. For example, the item has been ordered in the rate of 100. With this third option provided to the operator won't be able to increase the receipt rate to 101 or 110. Means he can't go past the order rate of 100. He can reduce the purchase rate if he has received anything as such, that he can reduce it from 100 to 90 or 95 or 99, but he cannot go past the order rate, that is 100. So with this, order item rate modification can be defined as per the profile setting to the respective users. Item rate modification is, if allowed, can be done directly in the item grid. Over here, user can change the item rate, and accordingly the net amount for that item will get pre-calculated. So it depends upon the user profile setting that modification of item rate is allowed or not. Moving on to next major enhancement, that is calculation, charge calculation is automated on save. In desktop application as well as in web receipts for ad hoc entry, every time on saving of receipts, system would display an alert that charge calculation is required if user forgets to calculate it manually. And after that alert event, user has to go and calculate charges through the function button provided. There was request from many of the end users that we don't use to modify charges. The term is already selected and we used to strictly follow the terms defined for the vendor. So why not the system himself calculate the charges and saves the entry? Why do we need to calculate those charges manually every time on saving of receipts? So with this release, we have came up with auto calculation of charges on save. User will just have to provide the header information, need to select the item and click on save button. On saving the receipt, if charge is not calculated, system will display an alert that charge is not calculated yet. On saving this entry, charges will be automatically calculated based on selected term. Please confirm to proceed. Now, it may happen that you want to verify the charges before saving the receipts. So you can cancel the saving process, that is, you can abort the saving process and calculate the charge through the traditional function button, which will populate the charge details over here. User can verify and validate, and then, as usual, can save again. Otherwise, user can directly save. System will automatically calculate the charges, populate the details, and save the challan directly. So this will obviously ease out the operations for the user and will reduce the steps for completing a transaction entry. So going ahead with this, chart summary item filter option is added. Now this again enhancement request that if user wants to modify charge factor for some of the items in present scenario, item charge modification was allowed at item level only. For example, let's proceed for an entry. Let's see how and why it's required. Suppose I am selecting item from multiple orders one by one. 92, order number 92 is selected, order number 91 is selected. So item from multiple order is selected along with, say, I am scanning same items on ad hoc basis itself. So we can see that multiple items are being selected. Now if we calculate charge, we can see that charge has been calculated and been populated over here, right? So this discount 10% charge has been populated for all the items over here, irrespective of orders and ad hoc items. Now, if as a user I want to modify the charge for discount for item Q1 from 10% to 15% and for Q2 from 10% to 5%. As of now, what user has to do is user has to select each item and modify it to item charge window. That is, in this present context, as there are three rows for item Q1, that is two for with respect to two different orders and one for ad hoc items, and three rows for Q2 for same reasons. That means modification is required to be done for six different item records. Whereas I want to apply same discount factor for all the Q1 items and Q2 items respectively. So it was a bit cumbersome for the users that even I want to apply same discount factor for all the items, for multiple items, I have to do it manually for each item. Now, what the solution we are providing for this is we can do it from chart summary window, that is for applicable item itself. We have provided the selection option over here. User can search and filter the item over here with respect to column filters. For order wise, user can filter the item for each order, user can filter item barcode wise, user can filter item for any of the available columns and mark those items as selected. Changing those item factor, discount factor for those and applying will filter those record cells and apply the factor for those items only. As all the items were having discount factor for 10%, changing the discount factor to 15% for some of the items will filter out the other items which does not belong in the same factor group. So we can see over here all the three items for Q1 has been selected and their discount values, the charges for discount has been calculated as per the new factor. On population, we can see that two different rows for discount has been displayed. One is for 15%, which will reflect the three items, and the other is for 10% for remaining of the items. Now, if I again want to filter out specific items, as I've said that Q2 I need to modify to 5, so we can again apply the same thing and can populate. So we can see it's much more easier to use, much more flexible, that sorry, that chart summary can be modified for multiple items at a time. Moving ahead with next major enhancement with respect to this good receipt challan, that is an option to hide or display purchase rate and values for receipt from the operator. So new profile has been introduced for display purchase rate and value for receipts. Why is this being required? Now, users which are operating receipts against an order and follow strict regime that orders will be received against the rates, purchase rates specified in the order, and they don't want those rates to be reflected or open up with the end operators, end user operators. They want to hide the purchase rates from the operators so that company policy or company secrecy should be maintained. Even in case of local procurement where purchase order has been raised from head office and managed sites or the stores far from head office used to receive those purchase order, item rate display is not desired by many of the companies or the policies as per the companies. So as now till yet there was no options neither in desktop nor in web where item rate or respective transaction values could be hidden for the operators. Keeping this requirement in mind, what we have done is we have provided a profile driven option to display purchase rate or value for the receipts. By default, all the users will be having this profile option as marked, that is allowed, and if required, this can be changed to restrict viewing of items. Now, how is this working? Let's have a check on the flow. So let's see the profile first, where we can mark this option as you can see over here that new profile option for display purchase rate and value for receipts has been introduced. We can restrict this by marking this as unchecked to the user to whomsoever it's not required. So let's save this profile. Have to log in again to have the profile impact. Now there will be you will be having several questions like how the rate will get populated, how the rate can be verified, how the charges can be verified, and all if this rate field is not been displayed. So this will be allowed or applicable for those users only who are having purchase entry against an order, and those rates and charges are all verified once the order is authorized, and receipt against those orders will induce rate and charges from the order itself. So verification at the time of receipt is not required. So in add mode, let's see how the things proceed. Selection of vendor. As I've said that if logistic is applicable, say for this vendor logistic is applicable, so I have to logistic tag the logistic prior to selection of item. Now we can see in item grid there is no column for rate, amount, net amount, basic value, anything. User won't be able to view the item rate or the total amount of that item purchased. Only quantity is being displayed over here. The option for charge calculation is also been made hidden. That is, as item rate is been not being displayed, I won't be able to validate the calculation of charge, calculation of tax, discount, etc. So charge calculation options is also negated from those operators. At the bottom of this item grid, the basic field for basic value, the net amount, nothing is being displayed over here. Everything has been made hidden. Charge amount, net amount, gross amount, everything. Neither user can select this from the column options available. So the amount and rate column options is also been made hidden for the operators to whom this privilege is not being provided. So it's a complete secrecy over here. User will just have to select the item barcode. This is applicable for both order items, ad hoc items, alternate items, everything. From whichever mode item is selected, item rate or value respect to purchase of that items will not be displayed. Over here, item charge is also been made hidden. That item wise charge can also be neither edited nor viewed for those by those users. Even from the list view, net amount for that receipt, the column for net amount is also been made hidden. That user won't be able to view the amount for those receipts being created. All it's need by an user is to select the vendor, tag the respective logistics, if applicable, scan the item, and simply save. System will display an alert that charge is not calculated. Proceed. It will calculate the charge, but it won't display any amount or any value of the charges with respect to that challan. An entry will be saved directly. The document number for receipt has been generated and saved successfully. So we can see that it's an added advantage for all the management teams if they want to hide the purchase rates from the end user operator, they can easily do so now, which was not available till yet in the system. It's going endless. So the features and the enhancements in this release is going endless now. Another major advantage that is coming up with this web receipt is auto PI generation on saving of receipt is now enabled in web. On migration of desktop application for ad hoc receipts to web, this feature was not been provided in web module. And we are obliged that almost all our users were using this and have faced lot of troublesome for this enhancement. So coming up with web release of GRC against order, we have now provided this option, that is generation of purchase invoice at the time of receipt itself. So as of you are saving a receipt, the message will display that do you want to generate purchase invoice against this receipt? Now if I proceed with yes, sorry, I guess I've pressed on the no. Let's check it on again. Logistic selection is required for this vendor. A window will pop up seeking information so for generation of purchase invoice. Now this will have invoice number, asking for invoice number, that is the document number in scheme for purchase invoice. If there is only one, it will get auto populated as we see over here. The invoice date, vendor name, ledger, reference site, and all will get by default populated. If required, user can change the site as per the available list. By default, the receipt date will be marked as invoice date. In case of backdated receipt, system date will be marked as invoice date, but modification is allowed for the user if he wants to generate invoice in backdate, that is the date of receipt. Document number and document date will again get auto-populated if provided in the receipt. And purchase ledger gets populated from the vendor master settings. Changes, if required, can be done over here. Document number is a mandatory field for that vendor, and document date is also required. Fields marked in extreme reflects mandatory selection. So generation of purchase invoice can be done by clicking on the generate button. User will automatically post the invoice and calculate the settings over here. So moving ahead with the next, as we are now allowing both ad hoc items, order items, and mixed items for receipts in a single form. If I want to filter it out from list view, that which are the entries that I made ad hoc and which are the entries against order, we can filter it out from the list view. That is, against order reflects only those receipts which are having items only against order. That is, ad hoc item is not being selected in those. Ad hoc reflects only those entries which are having items selected in ad hoc mode itself. No order item is being selected. Whereas mixed mode reflects that the entries are having both ad hoc items as well as order items. So this is an option or to filter it out the records made against different modes. Default last 7 days filter is provided in the list view. We all were facing issues whenever the transaction or the module has been opened up due to fetching of large number of data for the receipt. By default, as of now, the data for entire year or multiple years, if available, then data for all those such years were fetched at the time of opening of this entry module, which was taking a lot of time. So it was suggested that to apply filters for current year or for last 1 month or so that data list can get filtered out and user can get or fetch data in an easier and faster way. But still there was a problem, like with each every passing days, the data list would get increased with respective number of data getting added on every day. So what we have came up with is a new operator over here on date field, which signifies the last X number of days. It will automatically remove the older data and add on the new data as per the number of days selected. For example, if we select last 10 days over here, last X days, and provide the value 10 days over here. So as on today, that is 21st, the list view will fetch record set between 11th, 12th to 21st, 12th of May to 21st of May, that is last 10 days. Again, tomorrow, that is on 22nd of May, it will reflect data from 13th of May to 22nd of May. So with each every passing day, system will automatically calculate the record set of those 10 days only. So this will reduce the load of data fetching at the time of displaying the list. It will help you to get a better performance while loading the list page. With this release, we are providing a default filter being added for last 7 days for this module, receipts module. However, you can apply this filter on all the date fields as per your requirement. That is, you can provide a filter on authorization on, you can provide the filter on last modified on, any date field, receive date. So this can be used not only in GRC but also in other transaction modules wherever date fields is been provided. So this will add on to the performance of that list page, which will ensure the smooth retrieval of data and in lesser time. Even we can define this filter and mark this as default so that on fetching of next login every time this data set will get automatically filtered and user won't have to change it every day. On fetching of record set, it will get automatically applied for last 10 days and we can see that record set has been reduced for the respective transaction. Receipt can be deleted from edit mode. In web transaction, for ad hoc receipt, deletion was restricted from list page itself. That too been only if the operation for delete is allowed to that login user. Now, if a user verifies the entry and found that there's some discrepancy with this, he was unable to delete it from the edit mode itself. But this from web updation to GRC against order, we are providing delete option from edit mode also. Keeping all the other check constants intact, if deletion is allowed for that entry, user can delete it from the edit mode itself. Document once deleted cannot be retrieved, just a confirmation message. And if proceed, user will check whether deletion is allowed or not. As we can see over here that invoice exists against this document, so it cannot be deleted. So the validations will be checked before deleting the record, and if allowed, delete can be done through this edit mode itself. Another USP is release action is introduced in list page to release multiple receipts. This is required in case of local procurement, that is when a good receipt entry is made for a different warehouse where purchase has been made localized, that needs to be authorized from the head office or respective authorized person. As of now, there is a different module in desktop application for approval of those receipts. Now in web application, we have provided the release option from the list page itself, that user can release or approve the GRC wherever applicable from the list itself. User can select multiple document by filtering it through the different criteria, column level filters, search from the header block, etc., and can mark this as released. System will ask for a confirmation that documents once released cannot be modified, and if you want to proceed, it will mark those as released. It will again validate whether those required documents are selected documents are required to be released or not, like those receipts are eligible of getting marked as released or authorized. For example, over here for all the records selected, as we can see the system is displaying the message for release operation is not applicable to Turtle Limited. That is the owner side for these entries does not require release operation or authorization. As we all know that authorization or approval is required for managed sites only. So we can check this for different. So it's already released. So again, the system is displaying the message the selected entry is already released. So we can see that there are multiple checks being applied over here, and whichever document, if applicable or pending to be released, will get released from the list page itself. So user won't have to move out to a different module or to a different menu. If he is having the privilege or the operation is allowed, then only this release action will be workable for that user operator. Now migrating desktop application to web is having another challenge of document report. By default, we will be providing default document reports which are being published by Ginesys to web along with this release. But as there may be several customized reports being deployed at user ends which are being used on regular basis, those migration of those reports cannot be done overnight. So we are providing an option to use those existing desktop application for reporting purpose, so that even after migration or patch updation, you can continue using those document reports to overcome the initial hiccups of web migration, so that we both can support each other during that initial phase and can use the existing document reports in desktop application for the entries made in web. We at Ginesys will ensure that once reported from your site, we can migrate those custom reports in web itself as soon as possible. But for the time being, what we are doing is we are providing you the print document menu in desktop application itself. Let's see where it is. It's in admin utilities print document. It's the existing print module that is being provided in the desktop application. User can select the menu module, that is GRC Adhoc, and all the existing document templates which you all are using or continuing to using will be displayed over here. User can select the document numbers from the list available and can continue using the print option as per existing behavior. So just for the time lag between which the custom reports been getting migrated to web, we can continue using the existing report in desktop application so that we can continue our working and operations as earlier. So last but not the least, thank you everybody for your patience. And I know you will be having lots of queries and some positives from this update. We'd like to hear it from you via mail. So please have a note of this mail ID, that is grcfeedback@gsl.in, which is valid for next 7 days. We'd like to have a feedback on this entire change, how much useful, how much beneficial, what more changes you all are feeling that could have been done for the betterment of working, etc. So please provide us the feedback on the entire change. This will help you out. This will help me out in providing a better solution in future. So thank you so much for the patience and bearing with me. Have a nice day.